You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, football lovers? Welcome to the KCSN Draft Show. I'm BJ Kissel, and I'm joined by ESPN NFL draft analyst and Lamar, Missouri native Matt Miller, who I know if you've been watching these videos, Matt's been joining me for KCSN Update throughout the regular season, and now we're getting into his sweet spot with the NFL draft. And today, Matt will help us learn a little bit more about 3 wide receivers who are in this year's NFL draft. We had a chance to sit down with all 3 of these players out in Las Vegas at the Shrine Bowl, and Boston College standout Zay Flowers, a hot name out there right now. I'm excited to get Matt's thoughts on him, plus West Virginia playmaker Bryce Ford-Wheaton, and we'll finish up with Wake Forest touchdown machine A.T. Perry. Now, Matt, before we get to these prospects and talk about those 3 players in particular, let's talk about the wide receiver class as a whole in this year's draft. Just in general, big picture, what kind of class do we have this year at wide receiver?
Yeah, BJ, I think it's a good class at wide receiver. You know, the thing is, we have been ridiculously blessed with wide receiver talent coming out of college football the last 5 or 6 years. You know, I can remember a point in time when I was at Bleacher Report, I read an article about the wide receiver position becoming devalued to some degree because you're finding guys in the second round like Michael Thomas, you're finding Tyreek Hill on day 3. And it was, you know, you weren't getting that great return from first round receivers. Guys like, you know, Terry McLaurin was in there as a round 2 player. And so there was definitely a thought process of, well, do you still draft receivers in the first round? And then I swear, as soon as I hit publish on that article, like everything changed. And we started seeing, you know, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and, you know, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. You know, the last several years has been dominated by not only first round picks at wide receiver, but first round impacts. Whereas it used to be a spot, you know, where receivers didn't have 1,000-yard years as rookies. It just didn't happen. And so now I think we've seen a progression. So to put a bow on that, this year's class is good, but not great. There's not a Justin Jefferson type of route runner. There's not a Jamar Chase type of just like physically dominant dude. I think last year, the top 3, Drake London, who went to Atlanta, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, those top 3 would all be the number 1 receiver this year. What I like about this year is there's really good route runners. There are some players with size. There are some players with speed. You mentioned Zay Flowers. He's certainly one of them. So I think what you see this year is a little bit more equity at wide receiver, where it's like there's not going to be top 10 picks, I don't think. There might not be top 15 picks, but from pick 16 to pick 50, we're going to have quite a few guys come off the board who I do believe will be solid wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s early in their careers.
That's good to know. And I'm excited about, I mean, this is obviously the first episode of this series that we're doing, and make sure you're listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you check it out, because we'll have another KCSN draft show that comes out every week that is really getting into I won't say get into the weeds, but really digging on each of the positional groups. And that show will be with the guys from the laboratory, Kent Swanson, Matty Lane, Craig Stout, and they have on Eric Galco, the executive director of the East West Shrine Bowl, is going to join them each week to really get into each position group. We're going to talk through these 3 guys. But Matt, as you talk about, you know, the wide receiver class and specifically how it relates to the Chiefs right now, it's an interesting one, especially we're going to hit free agency first, but it's an interesting one for the Chiefs just because there's really not that many guys under contract beyond this year. They've got a lot of free agents with Juju Smith-Schuster, with McCole Hardman. You've got Justin Watson, who stepped up and played a key role at significant time. The only guys you really have under contract for the Chiefs at wide receiver beyond this year are Kadarius Toney, who they made the trade for, obviously Sky Moore being a rookie, and then Marquez Valdez-Scantling is also under contract. And then everyone's going to remind me in the comment section, I do this every time, that Justin Ross, that everybody got excited about during training camp, is also in the mix to compete for a spot. Let's not just book him in to something that he hasn't gone out there and earned yet, to be fair. Maybe part of your plan of your 7-8 deep, but not affecting your top 4 as it relates to where we're at right now. And I want to spend just a minute here talking about free agency, because obviously that comes before the draft. And you look at the numbers and you look at the free agents available in this year's free agent class, and Juju Smith-Schuster is by far the best wide receiver available who is a free agent. There are players out there like a DeAndre Hopkins who rumored to be available via trade, but as far as straight free agents, Juju Smith-Schuster is the only one with more than 805 yards receiving this past year. Some of the other names available, Jacoby Myers, Alan Lazard, Darius Slayton, Mac Hollins, Paris Campbell, Richie James, Noah Brown. And if getting to this point, not to disrespect these guys, but for Chiefs fans, if all of a sudden you're like, who is that dude? That's exactly the point that we're trying to make.
Right.
If you're going to do this, the Chiefs, first of all, Juju Smith-Schuster has a ton of leverage here based on the free agent class and where the Chiefs are at, and that he filled a very specific, very important role, and he has not gotten paid yet in his career. He is going to get paid, Matt. But as it relates to free agents versus draft, just how do you, in your position, kind of weigh those two things when you're looking at roster composition and roster building for, not just the Chiefs, but all NFL teams?
Yeah, I mean, first off, this is why we saw so much wide receiver movement last year. Teams looked ahead and they thought, hey, next year's wide receiver free agent class is not good. Next year's draft, you knew there wasn't. Like a year ago, Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State looked like a dude coming off that great Rose Bowl performance against Utah. But after that, it was like, well, there's going to be a drop-off. I mean, a year ago, legitimately, we could have told you this was coming. So I think that's why we saw so much movement last year. That's why so many guys are getting the fifth-year option at receiver. But I do think it's not a good free agent class. You mentioned it. Juju Smith-Schuster has leverage. He's 26 years old. He is by far the most productive and experienced receiver in this free agent class, so that's going to help his cause quite a bit. I think for Kansas City, it becomes a conversation like almost every position for them right now is, what is your almost replacement value cost? To get a player that can do what Juju did, which he had 900-ish yards receiving. Yep. What does that look like? What does that cost look like for us? I think what hurts a player like Juju is to see what Mahomes did with an entirely new cast of characters in his position and say, hey, maybe this is a position for a little bit we can get by without expensive players or first round draft picks, homegrown first round draft picks having a ton of an impact. You have to pick your spots. We've seen it at linebacker where they didn't want to pay. We've seen it at corner where they didn't want to pay. Could wide receiver be the new spot where they say, hey, for a year or two, let's chill, and we can get by with NBS on the last year of his deal. We can get by with Kadarius Toney. Sky Moore's going to get better. And then maybe you do, play the bargain game a little bit and attack the value in the draft. So I think that's what makes it interesting for Kansas City and a lot of other teams too, BJ. I mean, I hear from so many fan bases where they're like, oh man, the Browns, we need another wide receiver, or the Cowboys, we need another wide receiver. It's like, they're just not out there, and when guys like myself, we do mock drafts and your team doesn't get that position. It's like, guys, it's because they're not there. We can't just create a player and slide them into you at that spot. So I think for Kansas City fans, you guys, you've had your week to celebrate. You've got your confetti in the jar on the bookshelf, I'm sure. Now, when you start to look at roster construction, there might not be that player, unless, like you said, you trade for DeAndre Hopkins, you trade for a Chris Godwin. That really hasn't been this front office's MO on offense.
Yeah, and the other player, just because it came out on social media yesterday, is you had Michael Thomas, who hasn't played in a couple of years, if you forgot about him.
I love that dude, though, man.
He tweeted at Rick Burkholder and said, like, Travis told me how well you took care of guys who were injured. And, like, there's so much strategy. I don't trust anything that comes out on social media like that, because he knows you put it out there publicly, everybody's going to see it. Chiefs fans already started grabbing it, being like, hey, what about this dude? He's going to get paid a lot of money and hadn't played but like 3 games in 2 years. I know that was your guy. It has been your guy since he came out in the draft. But if you need to run a slant, you need a short, like, there'd be a good fit. You can't find me a receiver in the NFL who would not be a good fit to join Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes and company. But you already see the recruiting side of it. I fully expect Juju to end up back in Kansas City, but if he doesn't, that becomes ammo for Brett Veach and Patrick Mahomes when they're recruiting every other receiver to be like, come here for a year, put up numbers, win a title, and then go get paid. And it becomes a very easy recruiting tool, Matt.
Oh, no, it's like when Sean Payton, it's, hey, go be a backup quarterback for Sean Payton and you're going to get paid. Or Teddy Bridgewater did that, right? And so it has worked for some people, but it will be interesting. I love this fan base. You guys are amazing. My whole family, Chiefs fans, and they're already asking me, like, okay, what happens at left tackle? What happens at wide receiver? And I think, to Mahomes' credit, what they did this year, and not just Mahomes, Andy, EB, Matt Nagy, the whole crew, what they did, what they were able to get out of this offense with an entirely new cast of characters at receiver once Mecole got injured. It's fantastic what they did.
Yeah. All right, Matt, let's get into the three players that we're going to focus on for this episode. The first one is the best, highest rated prospect that we saw at the East-West Shrine Bowl a few weeks ago when we were out there. I saw something yesterday. I think it was your colleague at ESPN, Todd McShay, said there's top 15 rumors or buzz for Boston College's Zay Flowers. Not the biggest dude in the world, but if you talk about sudden, you talk about wearing the hoodie right now, with our late dear friend, Mr. Therese Paylor, he would have been a candidate for the all juice team for sure, the way this guy plays football, Matt. But when you've put on the tape and you studied Zay Flowers before we get to this interview we did with him, what stood out to you? What stands out to you about Zay Flowers' game?
Oh, no. Therese would have been stopping me in the hallway in Indy talking about, Matt, this guy can scoot. Matt, you seen this guy? He can scoot. So, no, he absolutely would have been all juice team, 100%. And that is, that's a great, I think way to describe Zay Flowers, someone who hasn't seen him, is he is, absolute certified speed, deep speed, but also the start-stop acceleration, not a one trick, hey, watch this guy run in a straight line. But I think what we've seen with some of the smaller receivers in the past, Hollywood Brown, guys like that, is they're one speed, and it's really fast, but they don't have that start-stop. They don't have agility. They don't have lower body strength. They don't have body control. And I think that's what makes Zay really different, is he has that. I think what also impresses me is he had a lot of production in college with a good quarterback in Phil Jerkovich, and he had a lot of production in college without a good quarterback. Once Phil broke his hand and got hurt, Zay didn't take a step back. And I think that's one of the questions we'll have this year about Jackson Smith and Jigbo at Ohio State. He caught 5 passes this year because he was hurt. Jordan Addison has a drop-off from production going from Pitt to USC. I think that's going to raise a lot of eyebrows. He's also kind of a skinnier build guy. With Zay, he's not small, he's short. And Kansas City fans will, remember a certain number 10. I don't want to make that comparison as a player at all. Don't quote me on that. But similarly built, whereas, a guy who is short but not small and still has some play power.
Yeah, you'll see in this video I'm going to throw to here in just a second that when you watch some of the highlights, that you can't not get excited about what Zay Flowers could do. And granted, I haven't watched a lot of the prospects, haven't studied a lot of them outside of just watching through some highlights, but I watched Zay Flowers and I immediately thought this guy could fit perfectly. His build, and I say his production, all of that, I'll leave that to the analysts like you guys, but the way in which he's utilized it, if you're looking for a replacement, if McCole Hardman does go somewhere else, he's got kind of that build, the way they could utilize him, the way that he fits within this offense. He could get open. He's going to make plays. It's going to be a lot of fun. But last year for Boston College, 78 receptions, 1,077 yards with 12 touchdowns for, again, Boston College's Zay Flowers. And again, Maddie Lane, Craig Stout had a chance to sit down with Zay Flowers out in Las Vegas at the East-West Shrine Bowl. Here is that interview.
Usually when I break out the huddle, I run out, see where the safety at. I look at the DB, see where he's playing at, on or off, inside or outside. I line up, probably smile a little bit because I know the ball coming to me. If he's outside, I'll dive inside, get vertical, try to get him on his heels, stem at him, break out like 3 steps, get back vertical, see where the safety's at, look for the ball, catch it, and just get in the end zone. No matter who's there, it's usually a touchdown, honestly.
What a catch! Touchdown, my Zay Flowers!
What is it that you love most about football, that you get to go out there and do the most about football?
Honestly, I love everything about football. Just catching and running, just trying to run away from defenders, scoring touchdowns. But I enjoy everything about football, like the whole process, like working out to on field by myself to like everything.
So you were telling us before we started this, you played some basketball growing up, AAU and stuff like that. What got you just going towards football rather than basketball or another sport?
It was really my height, honestly. I was like, I'm not 6'3", I'm not 6'4", so it was football. And I didn't really like basketball like that. My dad really kind of like forced me to play. But I knew it was always going to be football from the jump.
Do you have somebody in your life that kind of pushed you towards football or maybe helped take you up that extra notch in your career that really influenced you?
Honestly, I like did it myself. It was like either I was motivated to push myself or nobody was going to motivate me to do it. But I already had the people around me to help me, but I just had to motivate myself to do everything.
How do you find that motivation? Is there anything specific? Is it something from outside? Is it all something inside you? Just what gets you really that motivated to work harder and go that extra step? I
mean, I had a dream, like since I was a little kid, I wanted to play at the highest level, and I always dream about playing at the highest level. So that kind of like pushed me. And my mom put me in football when I was like 4 years old. She ended up passing like when I was 5. And I just wanted to keep it going, honestly.
Do you have anybody that's kind of been a mentor for you through whether it's high school, college, any coaches or other family members that you just kind of go to for their advice for any problems or anything you have?
I go to my dad for everything. Every choice I made so far in my life, I went to my dad about.
Dreaming of yourself, playing football when you're growing up. Who's your favorite team?
Dolphins.
Dolphins? Okay.
Yeah, what brought you there?
Yeah. What brought me to the Dolphins?
Yeah, to the Dolphins.
Honestly, it was just hometown team.
Yeah.
And it was the closest team I was closest to, so.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take it game week starting up. You guys just finished one game. You're getting ready to prepare for your next week. What is your process like? There's practices and all that stuff that the schools, schedules, but what's your process like preparing for your next game?
I start preparing like the day after I played that game. So I go watch film. I try to learn something about the DB, like if he can run, flip his hips, how is his feet, if he's physical. So, and then I just take it throughout the week, try to use some moves that I think I'm going to use in the game and do it in scout, and then try to take it to the game.
If you come off the field after a game, opposing coach has to go up to a presser, what do you want them saying about you? What's the one takeaway you want the opposition to say about you, man?
That kid is a problem. That's something I want him to say.
Do you have one specific game where you think a coach would definitely say, nope, that kid was a problem, or one game that you think best showcases your skills as a player that you can remember?
I believe it was like a lot of games, honestly. But one specific, I'd say Louisville this past season.
Yeah. So is there one play, whether it's from that game or a different one, that stands out in your mind where you remember, every single detail about it, whether good or bad, something you didn't do as well as you wanted to, or a play that you think you just knocked out of the park?
Yeah, it was. I had 2 of them that game, honestly. I was supposed to throw a pass, but my tight end he ended up being covered. So I pump fake, and he jumped, first the whole field, pump faked again, and then my quarterback threw a block for me. I tiptoed like 10 yards down the sideline and scored. Nice. And then the next one, I was double teamed, probably for like 60 yards downfield, and jumped over one defender, grabbed it, and scored. It's
a great play. I remember. I was saying a great play. I know exactly what you're talking about right now. Okay, so how's the arm? You said you were about to throw a pass. How's the arm?
I'm a quarterback. I think in my past life I was really a QB.
Okay. Cool. Let's just put ourselves in a situation here. You guys are having a game. You're playing the biggest rival. It's tied. You catch the game-winning touchdown. You guys just won. Do you want to be at home in front of your home crowd, celebrating with everybody there, or on the road, silencing your biggest rival's crowd? It's just a pin drop could drop in the stadium.
Oh, no, I wouldn't do that away. I'll do it away.
Yeah.
You want silence crowd.
Yeah. I like that. Then we'll turn up on the plane.
Yeah.
Do you talk a little trash on the field side? Trash talking?
Recently, a little bit. Not like a lot. I just smile. At them and don't really say nothing. I just smile the whole time, honestly.
So let's go to your draft process.
Yeah.
You're going through all of this. Draft night, you see your phone light up. You just got drafted. What's going through your head? What sort of emotions are going through your head? Who's with you? Who you going to hug first? Like what's going on through your mind right then?
I don't even know. I just gotta wait till I get in that feeling, honestly.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have my family with me for sure. Like I'm gonna try to bring all my siblings and my dad with me to wherever I go, wherever I have it at.
Yeah.
It's like you only get 10 tickets, but I got 14 family members, 14 siblings.
You can make it work. We got you.
All right, so that was Zay Flowers, the Boston College standout wide receiver, projected first-round pick from a lot of people right now as we sit here at the end of February. We know that can always change, Matt, but my favorite question every year around draft time for any player of any kind of any position, I should say, is would you rather be at home or away making a big play? Do you want to be celebrating with your crowd, or do you want to be on the road? And to me, this is not a fair statement. I understand that before people get triggered who are listening, but I love it because I always attest, like the guys who used to play with that chip on their shoulder and guys who aren't necessarily playing to get the love, to celebrate with everybody. The guys who say they want to do it on the road, to me, like that's a dog. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, to be like, you just want to shut everybody up. You want to are you motivated by your supporters or the people who doubt you? And not that either one's right or wrong, and you've had successful people for both, but it's always like the doubters. It's always getting these people talking trash to shut up and make it about you and your teammates. I love that answer. And normally with offensive guys, you hear, especially wide receivers, normally it's at home and celebrating with your team. And for Zay Flowers to say, I'd rather be on the road and shut everybody up, I was like, I couldn't have liked him more when we sat down and talked to him and then watched his highlights and some of his game. And man, That was a good interview. Loved that answer though.
No, and I thought honestly when they asked like why do you play football, like what do you love about it? I really expected him to be like beating the other team. They're like taking a corner one-on-one and ripping their soul out. You know, like that's because I have watched him play for 3 years, and that's kind of the player who he is. So I do want to go back to something we were talking about right before the interview is, you know, I think a lot of Chiefs fans and even, you know, national analysts, when you talk about wide receiver for the Chiefs, they've been typecast as almost gadget guys, you know, because Tyreek was at first kind of that gadget guy. Mecole certainly was. Sky Moore certainly was. I think Zay is a much more complete receiver than those guys were coming out of college, to where he has run a diverse route tree. I mean, you saw the play, I think, Florida State, where he's, you know, putting his foot in the dirt and he's making, you know, separation, not because of the scheme or because he is, you know, a trick play guy, but because he's a really accomplished route runner. So I think that's an important line to make is, yes, he's similarly built and he's that speed guy, but he is a true wide receiver, not just someone that's going to be like a punt returner and a jet motion guy and a slip screen guy. No, like he's a wide out for sure.
All right, let's move on. That's a lot about Zay Flowers, and I'm sure we'll be talking about him quite a bit here on KC Sports Network and all draft shows to get ready for the NFL draft here in 8 weeks or so. I don't know. Yeah, 9 weeks.
Is that it? I have so much studying to do. What? Okay.
I would say you have some time, but you really don't because the combine's right around the corner. It's like 2 weeks from now. So anyway, let's move on to the next player. This is Big 12 country and Bryce Ford-Wheaton, the 6'3", 224-pound wide receiver out of West Virginia. Had a chance to sit down with him as well. That was Maddie and Craig out in Las Vegas, and we'll throw to that here in a second, Matt. But what stood out to you in watching Bryce Ford-Wheaton this year?
Yeah, BJ. I mean, this is a different type of wide receiver. You mentioned the size, 6'3", 220 plus. And I think that showed up this year. They had JT Daniels at quarterback, who has been everywhere, but really elevated the quarterback position for the Mountaineers. What I saw early in the year, especially, was a guy who was dominating people on contested catches and winning in the red zone. You know, he was incredibly productive early in the year, getting touchdowns, making red zone impacts, winning contested catches. So not only is he a big wide receiver from the measurables, but he plays like a big wide receiver as well. And that was something until MVS came along, we had not really seen a Brett Veach and Andy Reid team have a big wide receiver. It's something I had been screaming from the mountaintops for was get another big threat. Get someone who we're in the red zone. It's not just Travis Kelce, although he's pretty damn good in that spot. So I think with Ford-Wheaton, you're looking at that different type of wide receiver that can win the post-ups and can be, a back shoulder fade, just a big guy, just a big strike zone, and someone who showed us, albeit against Big 12 defenses, that he is a master at the contested catch.
Yeah, he had the interesting with Bryce Ford-Wheaton, and we'll throw to the interview right after this, but he had 3 games with more than 60 yards last season. It was consistent right around between 40 and 60 yards. You could tell he was getting targets, but his biggest games came in the final 5 games of the year for West Virginia. And obviously we're talking wide receivers, so many variables with quarterback play and injuries and scheme and all those different things for him. But at 62 catches, 675 yards, averaged almost 11 yards a catch, and had 7 touchdowns. His biggest game of the year came in that overtime loss to KU. He actually had 11 catches for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. So right now, let's throw it to that interview. Again, Maddie Lane and Craig Stout had a chance to talk with West Virginia's Bryce Ford-Wheaton out at the Shrine Bowl in Las Vegas.
Bryce Ford-Wheaton, wide receiver, West Virginia University. I'm a dog.
Here comes JT Daniels. He's going to take a shot at the end zone. And what do you know? Bryce Ford-Wheaton puts West Virginia an extra point away.
Bryce, thanks for spending some time with us. We appreciate you taking time out of your day. I just kind of want to start. What made you fall in love with the sport of football?
Football's kind of always been something that's involved in my family. My grandfather played at West Virginia University, and so did my uncle too. So from a young age, I was kind of like always around football and like the West Virginia facilities and things like that. So I kind of fell in love with it like early.
Did you lean on those individuals as kind of like your inspiration for, how you wanted to play football or how you wanted to progress in your career?
Yeah. I just thought it was like cool. Just like playing D1 football. So I always knew like I kind of wanted to go to West Virginia just because of my family. But yeah, so once I got the opportunity to do it, it was just like a no-brainer, really.
And so what positions did they play? Were they wide receivers as well, or what did they play?
They both played running back.
Running back. Okay. So what got you to wide receiver instead of, did you want to be a running back too, or did you just kind of want to take your own path?
I played running back for like the first few years of my like football career, like in like little league and things like that. But I kind of like grew like tall and kind of like lean, so I knew that receiver is like better fitted for me.
Is there anybody that just kind of helps motivate you or influence you to be a better player or a better person, whether it's a coach or a family member that you kind of rely on?
Yeah, I'll probably say like my mom for sure, just because like she always like motivates me and kind of challenges me to like keep the standard of like our family high. Like in college, I knew that I couldn't really do everything that everybody else was just because of my family like legacy. So in order to like not to like dishonor that, I kind of had to live like by a different standard in college because I kind of felt like there was more eyes on me than everybody else. So my mom has definitely like developed me into a better man and also like a better football player too.
Okay, let's switch to the field now. Let's say you are you're getting ready for a game. You're trying to study your opponent. You're trying to study what they're going to do for you. Walk us through kind of what your personal process, not necessarily what the team process is, but your personal process is for, knowing what you're going to do on a game week.
Well, in terms of like scouting and things like that, I watch like a whole bunch of film. And this year I had online classes, so I was able to be around the facility a lot more. So I'll be watching film with like my coaches and my quarterback and things like that. But one of the main things I do in terms of like scouting is I'll go look up like past games they played in, and I'll look at to see if the opposing receivers had like good games or which ones had a good game. So I know what game to watch, and then I know like what works, and I kind of see what works. And yeah, so that's one of the main things I do. And then in terms of like my week before the game, I just always get like a whole bunch of recovery in. My strength coach puts me through like a lot of like little extra work, things like to keep me like fine-tuned and things like that.
When you watch those games and you see those other receivers do stuff, do you try and take stuff from their game, try and maximize the opportunities that you have?
Yeah, I always take stuff from like everybody else that I watch, whether it be like an NFL receiver, like with a release, or just seeing, like I said, those other college guys that had success against those DBs. I'll take whatever works, so I can kind of judge based off the technique and things like that, because the technique doesn't change. So I'll usually just incorporate that into like my game for that week.
Are there any specific players that you try to model a lot of your game after, or that you always want to go back and see their film or anything like that?
In the league, I always watch like Mike Williams. I kind of like to see what Mike Williams is doing because we're about the same exact size, and he's had a lot of success in the league. So that's probably like the one person that I really watch. But I watch a whole bunch of guys. Like Devontae Adams is another one, just because of his release and his separation, which is something I'm trying to work on in my game right now.
So, it all depends on the coverage you're facing, the team you're facing, as you're already saying. But what's your favorite route? Your favorite route to run?
I kind of like a little stutter and go, really. I kind of like just opening up my stride and seeing if a DB can really run with me. And then most of the time you're going to get them if they're in man coverage on a little stutter. So that kind of makes it a little bit easier, and just kind of like an exciting play.
So talking about a stutter and go, can you walk me through kind of this, the process? You're coming out of the huddle, that's the route, it's within the play that you're calling. What's your process from breaking the huddle to getting into the play? Just walk me through, everything that goes through your mind from the start to the catch to the run, what you say afterwards, whatever that may be.
Yeah. If I'm coming out of the huddle and I know that I have a stutter and go, first off, like the main thing is selling the first route. So if we've been running like a lot of hitches or like curls or anything like that, then he's kind of already going to be more likely to try to jump that route. So it's really like setting your other routes up to hit this one. And so I'll stutter probably like around like 8 to 10 yards. I try to like look in, set my eyes to the quarterback, and then usually they try to grab if they bite that. So I always be prepared to knock down somebody's hands. And then I dig out. I try to put my head down and just really open up my stride for at least 3 steps. And then usually by the time I do that, I look up and the ball's in the air already. So
balls in the air. You look back, you see it. What's going through your mind as that ball's in the air?
First, I'm trying to judge it to see if it's going to be like over the shoulder, like leading me downfield, or if I'm going to have to try to go up and get it. But like what goes into my mind really just like I know I have to come down with that ball. So yeah, that's the thing.
Okay, so you come off the field, opposing coach gets up to the podium. What do you want that opposing coach saying about you? What's the thing you want to hear out of their mouth that makes you go, yeah, I had a good game today?
I like to hear when coaches say, or I would like to hear them say, he's a dog. He does everything for them. He's just like relentless. That like one of those players that you hate playing against, things like that. So I like to hear that.
So at the end of the game, you're playing your biggest rival and you catch this game-winning touchdown pass. It's yours. It's you score it. You guys win the game. At home, crowd's going wild. All your fans are going crazy. On the road, opposing fans, rival fans, dead quiet while you and your teammates get to celebrate. Which would you prefer?
I never had a game-winning touchdown at home, but I've had one on the road before against Kansas State, and that was a lot. Like that was a lot of fun because they're a ranked team. We came in there, nobody thought we were going to win, and to catch one of those and to silence the whole crowd, and it was just a whole lot of back and forth with the fans after that. So it was fun.
All right, last question here about kind of your draft process. You're going to be going into this. Put yourself in draft night. Your phone rings. You see that it's an NFL team.
Yeah.
You're finally going to be, joining, playing in the league. What's going through your head? Who's there with you? Who you hugging first? Like, describe what that night's going to be like.
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot recently, but for sure, probably going to do it somewhere back in North Carolina. Have my mom sitting right next to me, my uncle, just like my real close immediate family, like my brother, my sister. I'll have a couple friends there probably, and then I'll have my girl there too. My mom definitely the first person I'm gonna hug though. Hopefully I don't have media there or anything. Hopefully I'm not crying and sobbing and stuff. But yeah, it'll be a good night.
Oh, thank you, Bryce. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it so much.
That was West Virginia standout Bryce Ford-Wheaton with Maddie and Craig having a chance to sit down and talk with him. Matt, what were your reactions? What stood out to you about what Bryce Ford-Wheaton had to say?
Nice. He's so mature. I think, as a junior, sometimes you don't know, not necessarily, professionalism, but how much they understand what goes into getting ready for a game. And I loved, his answer about his process. If he'll look and see like what do some other wide receivers do, and then he's looking at the technique of the corners, things like that. So I think West Virginia, not known for throwing the ball around a lot, not known necessarily as a wide receiver pipeline to the NFL. So I think that's a great question by your guys there, but also a good answer of, hey, this is how I prep, and this is what I've been taught to do and how I've been coached up. I love players who have that NFL pedigree because you do feel a little bit better about their ability to prepare and to handle the attention and to handle the stress of the job and the stress of, playing in front of millions of people. It seems like he's really well equipped to handle that early on.
Cool. All right, let's transition to the last player here. It's Wake Forest standout A.T. Perry, player that if you're a Mizzou fan, you're probably familiar with. A.T. Perry from the bowl game. Tucker had a lot to say to A.T. Perry about that when we interviewed him out in Vegas. But Matt, what stands out to you about A.T. Perry?
Yeah, I mean, touchdowns, just touchdowns on touchdowns on touchdowns. He had 26 touchdowns the last 2 years for Wake Forest. And at times, they had a dynamic wide receiver room there. It wasn't like he was just the only guy there. So really, really talented, big, 6'5". He's lanky, probably about 200 pounds. I don't think he's going to run exceptionally well at the combine. I don't think he's that type of player, but he is when you talk about strike zones for your quarterbacks, that's him because he plays very well, uses his length well at the catch point. You don't see him shy away. He's active, he's aggressive, but to average, I think at 21 he averaged like almost 19 yards a catch. I'm sorry, I don't have the stats right in front of me.
It's pretty good. 18.2. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, well, yeah, so almost we'll call it almost 19.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So you got some variance there, but I mean, he was just a highlight reel, and I was super excited after watching him in 21. 22, I think he, statistically had a little bit of a down year. They had some change at quarterback there, but he is a really good player who I know, sometimes people hear Shrine Game and they think, day 3, I think this is a day 2 player.
Yeah, especially you talk about a down year. He had 1,100 yards with 11 touchdowns in a down.
Yeah,
he has 26,
in a down
26 touchdowns over the last 2 years. I don't care what your suddenness is, and he's going to be a sneaky one. I'm interested to see some of his change of direction type scoring at the combine, because he could be one of those players. And when you watch him on tape, and we'll throw to the interview, a lot of highlights throughout it for those watching on YouTube. But is one of those, could be sneaky fast, like long stride speed, but not necessarily the quickest, just like change of direction, suddenness. But you can't score 26 touchdowns and have the kind of highlights he does without being a physical mismatch for me. 6'5", long arms, definitely stands out in that way. But let's throw to the interview now. Again, this is Wake Forest standout wide receiver A.T. Perry having a chance to sit down with Kent Swanson and Maddie Lane, our guys out in Las Vegas at the East-West Shrine Bowl.
A.T. Perry, Wake Forest, wide receiver. I'm different.
With 7 minutes left in the contest. Hartman under some pressure. Throwing for the end zone. Perry, he makes the catch in the corner for the touchdown.
Keeps Drake made that offense on the sideline. Hartman looking for the end zone. Pass Perry. He's
Hanging out with Wake Forest wide receiver A.T. Perry. A.T., thanks for hanging out with us, man. Appreciate it.
For sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you. Would love to know a little bit about just how you got into the game of football.
Well, I didn't get in as a young age. I kind of started late. I played pee-wee ball, but I'm a military kid, so we moved around a lot, and it was hard, just playing football. So I really didn't get, accustomed to the rules and stuff like that in football until I got to middle school. We moved down to Pensacola, so I just played there for a couple years, and then moved down to South Beach, Florida, and just started playing football from there.
Is there anyone, throughout your childhood or your life that kind of inspired you to go chase after playing football and get to this point in your career?
I would kind of say my dad was like a start for starters. I know growing up, he was always playing Madden and stuff like that and watching football. So, I got accustomed to that, just hanging with him, watching football. And then my mom got me into, Little League when we moved down to Pensacola when I really started playing. And, she always came to my games and stuff like that. My dad was always working. So she always came to my games, and I was like, you got to come out and watch him. Like, he's actually good. And then when my dad started coaching my team, he was like, oh, yeah, you got something. So then I stuck with football. I played basketball and did track as well in high school. It's been fun ever since.
When did you realize that you were good, that you had a chance to just keep taking this as far as you possibly can? Just how'd that process go for you?
Probably say when we moved to Pensacola. Okay. I played with that team the first year, and it was kind of getting playing football again. I hadn't played in 4 years since we were moving around so much. And when that second year, I know throughout that whole off season and stuff like that, I played flag and stuff like that. So I kind of did some little work here and there. But when I got into that season and I started making plays, I was like, oh, yeah, the football. I honestly, when I had watch clips, at the time, Huddle, was just introduced, and just watching my plays, and my dad was like, you should play football. This is for you. And I was out there snagging one hands, and I'm like, bro, yeah, this is for me. So, ever since then, I fell in love with the sport.
So, who are some of the receivers that you model your game after?
As a kid, I always watch Alshon Jeffrey because, my dad was a Gamecock fan, and my mom went to USC as well. I always watched him, and I was like, yeah, I got to perfect this game. I got to perfect my game just like his. I would go in the backyard, just line up just like him, just set my feet the same way, moves the same way, catching ability, all that other stuff. And then from then on, I got accustomed to other receivers like Julio Jones. And now, I really watch Devontae Adams, just his way of getting open, his releases and stuff like that. It's just amazing to me. I will watch his highlights before every college game. I will have to just sit on YouTube and just watch it.
So every wide receiver is watching Devontae Adams. The releases are so good off the line of scrimmage. That's something that everybody wants to go to. So let's put yourself kind of in that, not his shoes, but your shoes. You're at the line of scrimmage. What's going through your mind as you're thinking about how you want to release? I know each route's different, but what are you looking for to kind of give you tips on how you want to release off the line of scrimmage?
Oh, yeah, this is good. So I usually look at the DB's leverage, whether he's playing outside, head up, or inside. And then, I'll just watch a little film here and there. If it's off coverage, if he can turn his hips, he can get out of his break faster than me. And from then on, I just make my move from there.
Is there a game from your college career that if nobody had watched you play before that you would direct them to start there to see what you're all about?
Syracuse, 2021. That game was honestly like the start of everything. Like I had 3 receptions, 3 touchdowns, 132, and I had the game-winning touchdown. Like it was this. Like after that game, I'm watching. I'm like, oh, like I did that. And then from then on, like I was like, I gotta improve from here. Like I just gotta keep getting better and better. And that's what I did. And then, rolling into 2022, we played him again. And I had 3 touchdowns in the first half. So it was like, yeah. So like, just progressively just keep working and, just seeing stuff like that happen. It's like, it's no surprise.
So you're kind of making it sound like late, whenever you played Syracuse, that was kind of a flip that kind of switched for you. Is that kind of what you're saying there a little bit?
I would say Florida State, just because like Florida State showed me interest so much and they never offered me. So, and they're from, they're right down the road from me. I'm from Florida. So it's like every time we play them, it's like, I got to make a statement.
Yeah.
So this game-winning touchdown for Syracuse, I assume you remember just about everything about that play. Do you want to walk me through that?
So, the first touchdown I had, I ran a corner post. It was out of a bunch set and it's kind of like a pyramid set. I'm at the top of the key. The Z is on the outside, the slot, and then the tight end is on the line. And then you got the other outside receiver on the other side. So the slot and the other outside receiver, they have crossing routes. And then basically I run a corner post. And it busted coverage. I was wide open. He threw me the ball. The second touchdown was just a regular post. He was off coverage. So I just, seeing his leverage. He was playing me, kind of head up and inside. So I just threatened him deep. Broke the post inside, got open. They had no safety. They were actually in 4 sifs, so that free safety was down into the box. He was protecting the run just because of our RPO mesh. Mm-hmm. And that strong safety, he kind of lingered to the field. So I was wide open. Had that touchdown, broke a move, I scored. And then the last touchdown I had, which was the game winner, it was kind of a switch concept. I just set the pick for the team. He was running a comeback, and then I had the option whether to sit down or take it deep. I took it deep, and I'm looking through the ball, and I didn't see it till the last second, and the ball was coming down. I just torqued my body and caught it. So it was just like, and I got up, and he said, the ref threw his hands up, and I'm like, oh, man, I just got the game-winning touchdown.
There you go.
And then they reviewed it, said it was a touchdown. My heart dropped. I was like, bro, I really just did that. So it's like, that was honestly like a dream of mine, just getting a game-winning touchdown. Like, it was just amazing that it happened.
So what's your favorite route to run?
Probably a double moves like slug goes or stutter goes, or probably just some simple go routes or post route, just because of I add a little extra to it, just to get the DBs off his path and just get open.
So, you're getting deep on one of these vertical routes here. You look over your shoulder, you see the ball coming. What's going through your mind? Just like what's going through your mind as soon as you look over the shoulder and see that ball coming your way?
Honestly, just worry about the ball, not to worry about the defender. I know just working with my receiver coach at school, he just taught me the little things, getting down the field and not just fighting with the DB, but just focus on staying on your stem, keeping your line, not getting too wide and get out of bounds. Just holding that stem, the ball's in the air, just focus on the ball.
All right, so that game-winning touchdown you had against Syracuse, was it at home or was it on the road?
That was on the road. It was at Syracuse. It was actually it wasn't a lot of people in there, but it was really loud because they have a dome. Mm-hmm. But that was a really exciting game. It was back and forth. You know what I'm saying? Going to the overtime, it was just it was a heart racing moment. But I actually calmed myself down. Like we're good, we can win this.
So would you rather catch that game-winning touchdown on the road, silence that crowd, or would you rather do it at home with all of your fans and celebrate with all your family?
Ooh, that's kind of hard. I'd probably say at home, because I know people would have stormed the field and it would have been just crazy. And then we went back to school. We have something called roll the quad. They just throw tissue on the quad trees and stuff like that. So I would have ran back there after we got on the bus, got back to school. It got crazy with the students and stuff like that. But it would have been something special.
So you get done with the game, you get back there. What do you want the opposing coach from the opposite team to get up at the press conference and say about you as a player on the field?
He's dangerous. He's different. honestly haven't seen anybody at his size do what he does. Like, that's my motto. I want to be different. I just want to add stuff in my game that guys at my size that can't do. And, that just separates me from the games.
All right, let's talk a little bit about draft weekend, okay? We'll look ahead a little bit. Where are you going to be? Who are you going to be with? The emotions when you get that call. What are you going to feel?
9 out of 10, I'll be with my whole family, mostly on my mom's side because everybody's down there. But just getting that call, that's just like, damn, that's something I dreamed of. Just watching, other players and even my boys that went into the draft, just the draft process. It's just like, I want to be there one day, and honestly want to, feel how that feels and stuff like that, and then have a team and accept me, be on their roster, make some plays.
Who gets the first hug after that phone call?
My mom. Yeah, mom. I know most definitely my mom. Just just hearing her story. My mom was a All-American track athlete out of high school, Gatorade Player of the Year 2 times, junior, senior year, and I didn't believe it. Everybody was saying that she had every offer in the country, but when I actually seen it, it was like, damn, she was actually a competitor. And her going to Arizona State, and she didn't find out until after she signed her letter of intent that they were on probation. So it was kind of ruined her chances, her opportunities of going to the Olympics, competing in the NCAA championships and stuff like that. So, just hearing her story, and then her having me, she went into the military. That's how she met my dad. And then when she got me, she left the military. My dad stayed in the Navy for a couple of years, and he switched to the Coast Guard, just to, have some time with us and stuff like that. But, just hearing her whole story and how much compared she were. Every time I go home, it's like everybody asks me who my mom is, and I say her first name, and it's just like, your mom is Chassie. One of the scouts from the Denver Broncos, he knows her because he went to high school down there as well. So he was like, yeah, you're not beating your mom in a race. She's that fast. So it's like, just hearing that and then hearing her story, it motivates me. I want to be great just like her.
Well, AT, we're rooting for you. Congratulations.
Sure.
Best of luck. And I really appreciate your time, man.
Sure.
That's Wake Forest wide receiver AT Perry.
Matt, there's a lot to love about that interview with AT Perry. What stood out to you?
Number one, I want to see him and his mom race. I think we got to find a way to make this happen, PJ. Mom's got to lace him up with the combine, maybe see what she's got. No, I mean, I think incredibly well spoken. His ability to articulate what he's seeing on the field, what he's doing on the field. You can tell he's an educated wide receiver. He has a plan and he executes it well. I loved the throwback to Alshon Jeffrey. As that was a guy who really helped me kind of, put a stake in the ground in my career early on was my belief in him as a number one receiver who fell to the second round. But I think the play style, he's a lot bigger or a lot taller than Alshon was, I should say, a lot taller. But you can see the physical aspects in the game are definitely there.
I love I call it jargon, and I know enough about it to be able to follow along when he's talking about the coverages and everything that he's seeing, that you could tell. I mean, he's not looking at the plays when they do those interviews. I was sitting in that room with him. There's a bunch of his, teammates out there at Scramble all surrounding him when he's talking through that stuff. He's just doing that off memory, off of what he sees when he's asked about a play that he was not prepped for. It was just like, hey, what do you remember about this play? Right. He can see it in his head and explain the coverages and the leverages and everything else that's going on. That stuff stands out, and it means something when he does that exact same thing to an NFL scout. And by the time you get to the combine, do these official visits, they're so prepared for it that they know they're studying. They're at these Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, same kind of deal.
Right.
They're not doing it this early. They don't have the 2-3 weeks of media training and interview training before these events. And that stood out about A.T. Perry, that he obviously knows the game. He knows the coverages. And for a player that I'm so conditioned, because I only really know one way to study and kind of understand how things work with Andy Reid and the Chiefs, and that those wide receivers in particular, they have to know how to read a defense, because so many of their routes are option routes based on leverages and where guys are sitting. And that's unique. That's not the same across the entire NFL. And that's why it takes a couple years for receivers to really get comfortable with the system and know what they're doing. So when I see it, it stands out, and him talking through those plays stood out to me.
Yeah, and as a 2-year starter, we kind of talked about that earlier. His first year, I believe he redshirted, but really just a 2-year guy. And so to have that maturity at the position, I think stands out. And you're absolutely right. It's the type of thing, at the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Game, even the Combine, you're speed dating. If you're a scout or a coach and you're talking to a player, it's 15 minutes max, right, that you get with that player. So you need something that as a player, how can I impress you? You can't be fake because everybody's going to see through that. But I think that, like you said, the jargon, to be able to talk about the technical aspects of the position, to talk about the competitiveness, the recall, all of that is super, super impressive from AT.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I loved this first episode. We weren't really sure what the format was going to be, how this was all going to work. We just know we got a lot of interviews, a lot of content, and this is how we're going to disperse a lot of them. You'll be able to find a lot of these interviews and a lot of this content, separate videos posted on our YouTube channel for everybody that's still hanging out with us here on this first episode of the KCSN Draft Show. Again, Eric Galco and the guys from the laboratory, a rotation of them, are going to have another draft show each week leading up to the NFL draft, in addition to a lot of other breakdowns and highlights, and we'll have plenty of content getting you ready for the draft. And we are lucky that somebody as busy as Matt Miller and everything that he's got going on with ESPN's coverage of the NFL draft. It's going to be a blast. Coming to Kansas City, we will be at how do I say this right now, Matt? A featured location in Kansas City doing our live shows this year. Everybody knows this area that we will be hanging out, drinking.
It's a popular spot.
Yes, it's a very popular area within Kansas City. Probably drinking some Miller Lights to foreshadow some other things that are going on with our content here. But we appreciate everybody for hanging out. Appreciate you, Matt. Can't wait to catch up next week and drop some more interviews, get your thoughts on some more players. We get ready for the NFL draft, which to some people seems like a long ways away, but for you, it's just right around the corner. Bud.
Yeah. Only 500 more players to study or something like that. So, it'll be fun, though. I'm excited.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate everybody for hanging out. Hit that like and subscribe. Let us know in the YouTube comments what you think about this episode and this content, and we'll continue tailoring things to give you guys exactly what you're looking for. Appreciate everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. Check out these videos that feature our team of more than 15 former players, insiders, and analysts, bringing you the best Chiefs coverage you can find. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.